tonight. Nearly a month later, Regina Public Schools are still dealing with the aftermath of a cybersecurity attack. Also, more than half of Saskatchewan cities are trying to figure out how they're going to pay for a massive bill covering RCMP back pay. Plus,
I think that when it comes to the workplace, there may be a stigma and a judgment that needs to be overcome.
With the federal government lifting vaccine mandates for employees and travel, we check in with an HR expert for tips and tricks on how to manage dynamics.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, June 16th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. It's been nearly 4 weeks since Regina Public Schools was the target of a cyber attack. Few details about the incident have been released publicly, but as Alexander Kwan reports, teachers we've spoken to say school systems are still not back to normal.
26 days, that's how long it's been since one of the largest school divisions in the province was the victim of a ransomware attack. A copy of the ransom note was obtained by CBC News. It alleged information including tax reports and health information, as well as passports and social insurance numbers, were obtained by the organization behind the attack. Despite this, Regina Public Schools has remained largely silent. The division has not issued any public comment since it confirmed the breach. And despite insisting that it would be business as usual at school, insiders say that is simply not true.
There has been, quite a bit of impact in our schools on teachers for sure.
CBC News spoke with 4 teachers, all based at different Regina schools. They painted a picture of a division still trying to get things back up and running. Internet service has only been partially restored. Teachers at some schools are unable to print papers, and others say they've lost years of lessons because they can no longer access shared drives. And there's no info on if they will ever get that material back.
The difference with this one being this late in the year is just around the reporting and the final assessment stuff that has really created some challenge on a timeline for teachers.
Regina Public Schools have told teachers that things like social insurance numbers or banking information were not exposed, despite that claim being made in the ransom note. Staff have also been offered access to a credit monitoring system. The school board has repeatedly refused to comment on the attack. It hasn't even confirmed that it is ransomware. We hope to find out more information at an event today for the opening of a new playground in Regina. But unfortunately, no one was able to give us more information.
Actually, no, I don't know much about it. I just know a lot of things weren't working. Okay. But as far as I know, we've got it up and running. So
the division says more systems are to be restored by Friday. For now, staff at Regina Public Schools are forced to wait and hope that things will get back to normal before the end of the school year. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
More than half of Saskatchewan cities are trying to figure out how to pay huge bills for RCMP back pay. The end of June deadline has been pushed back, offering some relief. But as Bonnie Allen reports, cash-strapped cities want Ottawa to pitch in.
Here in Saskatchewan, small cities that rely on the RCMP for policing are still trying to figure out how to come up with what adds up to millions of dollars to not only pay for pay increases this year, but also a one-time payment to cover retroactive pay increases going back to 2017. This is an issue across Canada, with some BC municipalities on the hook for tens of millions of dollars. This comes from the collective bargaining agreement reached by RCMP members and Ottawa last summer. Now, I spoke to Mitch Hipsley, the mayor of Yorkton, home to 16,000 people. Hipsley wants to be clear, he doesn't oppose the pay increases. He supports that. What he's not happy about is this one-time payment for back pay.
We were handed a bill for $1.4 million in the city of Yorkton, which is absolutely huge. We had no part in the bargaining whatsoever. We were just handed a bill.
In Saskatchewan, this affects 9 small cities. Now, a while back, Ottawa warned municipalities to put some money away for this back pay, but the bills are double, even triple what was forecast. I spoke to Swift-Current Mayor Al Bridle, and he says they put $300,000 aside, but the back pay could cost up to $1 million, and the city would have to deplete its rainy day fund. Now, Yorkton has already raised taxes nearly 5% this year, and none of that goes towards covering the back pay Ottawa is expecting.
So we're hoping they'll come to the table and at least give us half. We'd like it all, but let's be realistic. We're prepared to help meet them halfway.
The press secretary for Federal Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino provided a statement that essentially says the government is aware of this challenge and will work collaboratively with all levels of government to try to sort it out, but no commitment to cover any of the cost. The mayors I spoke to say they still have no idea if there will be any real relief or when they might have to cough up this money. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Meadow Lake.
The City of Regina is looking into the cost per person for supportive housing. It's calling it a housing first approach, and it's all about helping get homes for people who may have mental health and addictions issues. Regina City Council has passed a motion to end homelessness in its 2023 budget, and it is now a permanent line item for next year's budget. The motion to support the elimination of homelessness also asks city staff to examine the, quote, financial cost of continued inaction on this issue.
The city committed to a 5-year plan to end homelessness in 2018. It is to be solved by 2023. We are not on track to meet that goal. Instead, there are twice as many homeless folks today than there was when the plan was adopted. It's time to make good on our commitment.
Council will prepare a report looking at the cost of eliminating homelessness and the number of those who are chronically homeless in the city. Regina City Council has also passed a motion to help improve the lives of people in the gay and trans communities. Councillor Dan LeBlanc forwarded a motion asking for a report on ways to make Regina a more inclusive city. One delegate in support of the motion spoke of the importance of streamlining name-changing policies in the workplace. Aspen Huggins, a former vice chair of UR Pride, says they recently changed their name, but their employer took a year to update the change, and that created problems.
The result of that was that I was outed to every colleague that I worked with, every external client I spoke to, in every meeting that I attended for that entire year. I mean, that created safety risks for me being outed against my will, and it created this daily grind and weight on me to have to out myself and share personal information in every meeting when I was in, when I was just trying to do work.
Advocates say better health care policies and employment equity are also needed. Council will get a report back from administration by mid next year. The federal government has announced that as of June 20th, you won't need to prove your vaccine status to travel by plane or train. It also applies to international trips and to federal employees who will no longer have to prove they've been vaccinated. But what will that do for workplace dynamics? For more on this, I'm joined by Nita Chinzer, an associate professor at the University of Guelph in Ontario. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's an important topic.
So as a human resources expert, what were your first thoughts when you heard the mandate was being lifted?
I thought it was great, and I definitely thought it was about time, because I'm hearing a lot of employers talk about the labor shortage and the difficulties that are going on with the federal government, number of employees, the backlog that's caused, and I'm really excited to see people have the opportunity to go back to work.
In an ideal world, we would all just get along. But what professional advice do you have for managers and coworkers dealing with conflict related to vaccines?
I think that when it comes to the federal government, there was about 2% of the population of employees who were off, either because they chose to not disclose their vaccine status or they hadn't been fully vaccinated. And what I would recommend managers do here is try to eliminate any of the stigma and embrace those employees as part of the workforce, because there may be some underlying tensions or conflicts between people who continue to work and those who were on an unpaid leave. Likewise, the people who are coming back may be somewhat apprehensive about the workplace environment. So ensuring that we're still providing safe measures at work and an opportunity to speak up if we feel that our workplace health and safety is being violated can help.
More generally, with the return to the office, more people going back to their workplaces, what kind of dynamics can we expect as people reintegrate into the workplace?
I think that getting people back to the office means that we're going to have to create opportunities for informal conversations. And we would expect the dynamic to be a little bit hesitant at the start, but as people begin to realize that they were missing the workplace environment and that workplace isolation is now gone, we need to give opportunities for them to speak to each other. So I would expect to see a lot more conversations at the coffee locations, informal conversations before and after meetings, and some of that fabric of society that went into the workplace reintegrating. I think that when it comes to the workplace, there may be a stigma and a judgment that needs to be overcome. And oftentimes, if we get involved with addressing the stigma right off the bat or addressing some of the team conflict right off the bat, then we can table it and move forward. And I think that a lot of managers should take that action when they do reintegrate their work from home employees, as well as the ones who are working on location, to ensure that you are addressing the elephant in the room. Otherwise, you may have opportunities here where that stigma can turn into hostility.
What will happen if the federal government were to reintroduce the mandate should another COVID variant or significant wave arise?
I think if the government were to reintroduce the vaccine mandate or the occupational health and safety issues around the vaccines, I think that organizations will have policies in place to deal with requests for accommodations. And this time they won't be completely caught off guard. So they'll just re-implement their policies. And I think employees who were initially at home for a variety of reasons, reasonable accommodations, will return back to that. Because I believe the next time if this type of an issue does happen, it will be perceived as a temporary issue or something that we have a workaround for.
All right. Thank you so much for this, Nita.
No problem. Thanks for your time.
Nita Chinzer is an associate professor at the University of Guelph in Ontario. Two Saskatchewan women are blazing a trail in sport, and it keeps burning south of the border. One is heading to the NFL, the other to the NHL. Regina's Amanda Ruler has been with the U18 women's football in Ontario as a coach and recently had a brief coaching internship with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Now she's traded the green and white in for a Seattle Seahawks jersey. She's part of the NFL's Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship program that puts women in untraditional roles. And Rocanville hockey player Jessica Campbell will head to New York to coach at the Rangers development camp this summer. Campbell was on the Canadian Olympic team, played for Cornell University, and coached professional hockey in Germany. The Saskatchewan Roughriders leave for Edmonton tomorrow, and whether one of their top receivers is on that plane or not is still up in the air. Duke Williams, who made a nice catch for a 2-point conversion in Saturday's win over Hamilton, is dealing with an ankle issue. Apparently, the injury is not related to that wild celebration. He turned an ankle in practice. At this point, even the coach is unsure of Duke's status for Saturday's game against the Elks.
I don't know, to be honest with you. He didn't practice today. He came out and during walkthrough and moved around a little bit. But it's probably 50-50 right now, to be quite honest with you. He's gonna treat it tonight and see how he feels in the morning, and he's going to let us know.
If Duke Williams can't go on Saturday, Dickinson says they have a few options to replace him. Game time Saturday night at 7:30. Well, there are some people who can find a silver lining in anything, and this is one of those people. Rhonda Vegsko in Rocanville, just north of Mooseman, posted this video to social media earlier this week. The rain they got was part of that low pressure system on Monday that seriously flooded some other areas, including Battleford. Another rainy day today with some thunderstorms in the forecast. Ethan will have your full forecast coming up. Stay with us. Recent heavy rain in the province has brought hope for drought relief, but despite over 100 millimeters in some areas, it still may not be enough. One hydrology expert says some areas of west central Saskatchewan are still behind average precipitation. Some places are as low as 40% of normal moisture between April 1st and now, but significant runoff from mountain snow peaks and lots of moisture from waterways in Alberta should help. The North and South Saskatchewan rivers will likely see that extra water arrive next week, but the situation is fragile as a major heat event like last year could reverse any progress made.
We're in an era of climate change, and the atmosphere is modified, and so weather is just weird now, and it's probably prudent to expect some very uncivilized weather to come our ways from time to time, whether it's extremely wet or extremely hot and dry.
Meanwhile, farmers in west central areas are rejoicing at this rainfall. Seeding there has mostly wrapped up, and until this week, conditions have been extremely dry.
I mean, it's been a godsend, quite literally, in every sense of that word. Previous to that, we had been sitting with about a half inch of precipitation since the beginning of April. So definitely not enough to really produce anything, and certainly, if we had missed this rainfall, we were looking at having anything from very significant yield loss similar to what we had last year, to the possibility of just having a crop insurance collection year where we don't have a harvest period.
The Water Security Agency is also monitoring incoming river flows. It expects levels on the South Saskatchewan River near Lake Diefenbaker to increase by nearly 2.5 to 3 meters over the next week. That will replenish low levels on Lake Diefenbaker, but flooding is not expected.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. The exclusive export event is back.
And Ethan Williams joins me now with a look at your forecast. With the rain out of the way, we've made way for some sun and heat, which to me sounds like a recipe for mosquitoes.
Yes, I think they will be aplenty, Sam, for sure. And I think that heat will be very welcome to the farmers too. And we did get our crop report today. And with all the rain and the heat, all considered, we are 98% of the way with the crop in the ground. I think this will be our last report now until we get to harvest time in the fall. The issue now becomes wind. It's delaying spraying for weeds and insects. And crop conditions, though, are ranging from fair to good, which is good news. But pretty wide-ranging rainfall totals so far this month across the province. June is usually the wettest month in the province. This is when we get the most rain, pretty much province-wide. And you can tell that in places like La Ronge, where we are about halfway through the month, and they've already seen more than the 30-year average that they get for rainfall. North Battleford, 110 millimeters so far this month. They usually see 65 in the entire month. And keep in mind, 101 of those millimeters fell in one day. So if that system hadn't moved through, you'd still be fairly dry in that part of the province. But look at how dry it is across the south. Only 6 millimeters in Regina so far. And usually in the entire month, we see about 71 millimeters. But there is still another couple of weeks to go. And this rainfall that happened yesterday in the province is helping in some places. Hafford, just east of North Battleford, picking up about 16 millimeters. Same with Isle Lacrosse. Northwest of Saskatoon station reporting 8 millimeters, and Swift Current and Shaunavon picking up some rain as well. Some pretty wide-ranging rain yesterday. But we go from the rain into the heat. A heat warning now in effect for south central, southwest, and west central Saskatchewan. And a lot of these places could see temperatures tomorrow and Saturday into the 30-degree range. Humidity going to make it feel into the 40s. Our sky conditions, really not much happening over the next couple of days, especially in south and central. To the north, some patchy cloud cover and maybe some rain showers tomorrow and on Saturday as well. The next threat to Saskatchewan is this system, which is moving in from Alberta, which will bring some potentially significant rainfall to the end of the weekend in the north. And wind gusts are going to pick up significantly as we head into tomorrow as well. South and central going to be seeing gusts between 50 and 70 kilometers an hour, and they'll stick around through the weekend. On Saturday morning, they're gusting still up to around 50, but the good news is on Saturday afternoon, when it's quite hot, with these winds might bring a little bit of relief. And there is a thunderstorm risk as we head into tomorrow as well. The Shaunavon East End area over toward the Estevan area could see some severe storms. A general non-severe risk for Regina and Saskatoon. Very steamy conditions, especially in Regina and the south the next couple of days. Very windy tomorrow. Humidex getting into the 40s on Saturdays, but then that drops off pretty quickly. We're back into the rain, back into this pattern that we've had for the past couple of weeks. Saskatoon, similar situation here. For Father's Day, actually not looking too bad now. There was some rain expected yesterday, but not anymore. We welcome summer, though, with some potential rain showers on Tuesday. And Sam, I would like to propose that we move the first day of summer to Saturday, because it looks like that'll be the most summer-like day.
It's also the most steamy day, as you put it.
That is correct. I like that word.
Steamy.
Steamy.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Not every day you get to see a new playground from the view of one of the kids it's intended for. Today, McDermott Community School unveiled its new play structure in Regina. The Co-op Refinery Complex donated $60,000 toward the installation. I'm sure it will be very busy this weekend with all that nice weather on the way. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is defending her government's efforts to help Canadians cope with inflation. In her first major speech since delivering the federal budget in April, Freeland outlined nearly $9 billion in support programs that have already been implemented. David Cochran has the details.
Chrystia Freeland is facing a rare challenge, a finance minister with record low unemployment and a strong economy, but with many Canadians struggling and anxious.
Why are Canadians so worried? I think everyone here knows the answer. Inflation.
It's a global problem fueled largely by global factors, but Freeland is facing acute domestic pressure to act.
People are hungry. People need help. And so our approach is let's give people real help in a meaningful way.
The GST, for example, is something that can be taken right off at the pump, and Canadians will see that. That will help them to deal with some of the short-term issues when it comes to groceries.
This speech was Freeland's rebuttal against calls for new measures, pointing to a series of steps taken in the last two budgets that roll out this summer.
A new set of measures is coming into force right now to help the Canadians who need it most. This is $8.9 billion in new support for Canadians this year.
That includes a boost to old age security and benefits for low-income workers, cutting childcare fees, and indexing programs like the Canada Child Benefit, GST rebate, and the CPP to inflation.
Well, maybe doing nothing is the right thing to do. The last thing we need is the government to add more net stimulus to the economy.
That's the path Freeland is following, at least for now. Freeland argues these measures are enough for the short term, though she isn't ruling out future action if inflation remains high. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
And Ethan is back with one last look at tonight's weather.
And not a bad night in Regina, Sam. We're at 13 degrees at midnight. Nice light winds. Enjoy it because the gusts will pick up very significantly as we head into tomorrow. At 8 a.m., I'll show you what I mean. We're already seeing southeast gusts close to 40 kilometers an hour. Nice sky conditions, mostly clear conditions out there, 17 degrees. We head to the afternoon. We clear right out. We're at 25 degrees, but southeast winds close to 60, and we'll get to 70 kilometers an hour. Also 13 at midnight in Saskatoon. Partly cloudy conditions will stick around as we head to 8 a.m. 16 degrees. Wind also picking up as we head to the noon hour, where we'll be at 23, close to 50 kilometer an hour gusts, and dare I say, a steamy forecast tomorrow, Sam.
I'm just going to leave it at that. Thanks.
That's all you need to say.
Oh, before we leave you tonight, it was a pretty busy and tasty morning in Saskatoon. The city's annual pancake breakfast was back for the first time in 3 years. That is Fire Chief Morgan Hockles serving up hotcakes for the crowd. The 46th annual breakfast started at 7:30 outside of City Hall for $7. People could get pancakes, sausage, coffee, and juice. There was also plenty of fun and games along with the food, which was clearly a hit. The highly anticipated event is a fundraiser for the United Way. And that is it for us tonight. For News Anytime, you can always head to our website or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Glenn Reed will be back with more local news at 11. Thank you for watching and have a great night.